The participants, if you would show us your face, we would really appreciate it. We want to know that you're here. We want to be able to interact with you. And I want to introduce the beautiful panelists that we have here with us today. We have Adrienne Lucas, DEI Director at the One Club for Creativity. She manages an annual conference called Where Are All the Black People, which is designed to open up more corporate positions to qualified Black people. She has a background in law. She's well-versed in the issue of equity in career paths. We have Jasmine Gibson, CEO and founder of Miyokoa Strategies and Black Women Marketers. She's a digital marketing expert and business strategist. We have LaShawn Dreer, CEO and founder of Black Women Hustle. She also has a background in digital marketing and business strategy. And we also have Reagan Farley, who is a publicist and business strategist. She's also a skilled connector, as been told. So thank you so much for joining us, ladies. And you all are actually connected to each other in different ways in business. So I would love for you all to just start out by talking about your own professional connections to each other and what that kind of sisterhood and supporting Black women in business has meant for each of you individually and growing your own careers and your businesses. And we'll start with you, Adrienne, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so in addition to my work with the One Club for Creativity, I'm also a diversity and inclusion consultant for a company called the National Association for Minority Speakers. And we were looking for a social media strategist. And so we were on the phone with a woman named Bianca Lynch. And during that call, Bianca's like, you work in marketing, you're all about Black women empowerment. There's a woman named Jasmine Gibson that I need to introduce you to because I just feel like y'all just need to know each other. And I'm like, listen, I want to meet her. So then Jasmine and I get to talking and I tell her about Where Are All the Black People. And I tell her, we need a PR team to help us this year. And she's like, I know just the person you need to speak with, Reagan. So then I talked to Reagan and then we ended up bringing on Reagan and the IMG team to do PR for Where Are All the Black People. So literally that's how it is. And even just yesterday, I was on the phone with someone who's interested in doing DEI work and doing these types of panels, and I connected them to Nardos. So that is literally how this works. So yeah, I'll pass the mic to anybody else to chime in.
Yes, Jasmine, I would love to hear from you next.
Yeah, so very similar. I'm right with you here, Adrienne. So I was very, very blessed early on in my entrepreneurship journey to meet LaShawn. And so LaShawn had me for one of her workshops, and I had such a great time. And I was like, okay, there's this mean girl movement. There's this like women's empowerment that's kind of like watered down, and while we don't want that to be the case, that is the realities of it. And I was like, dang, she's like, okay, she's true, she's true to it. And LaShawn and I met that way. We stayed connected for so long, and when Clubhouse came about, LaShawn and I started taking on really dope and amazing rooms on Clubhouse that just like grew both of our groups like tremendously. So we started doing that. Reagan and I have been in similar circles for a while. Mm-hmm. And then Reagan and I, when did we meet, Reagan? Like, when did we? I know Clubhouse. We did Clubhouse. We were following each other in similar circles. Clubhouse did the convos. We did convos, and we started sharing stages, and that's when we.
And it just organically happened. Like, I don't know when we became friends, but it just organically happened.
And down, which is so interesting, is Reagan and I lived in the same city. So we had no idea. And we finally like met for drinks like this year. So it's a really interesting process. Adrienne, I don't know how I got connected to you.
Bianca Lynn.
Oh, Bianca holds it down. So Bianca is a great connector too. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just really blessed that I have amazing people that I'm connected to, and that they are actually women that are doing the work and making sure that like Black women are truly uplifted and they understand the true meaning of sisterhood. So I think that's what's most important to me. And now, because we've built something so organic, it's easy to say, all right, there's another marketer when we have overflow called LaShawn. There's Black Women Hustle with LaShawn. Reagan is our publicist. Anything you need in DEI, here we go. There's where's Adrian? Like now we have our points people. So I definitely am just like really grateful, very blessed that we got each other.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, LaShawn, I would love to hear about your work with Black Women Hustle and how you got connected with this group too.
Yeah, so Black Women Hustle, I launched it in 2018, and it's now the all-in-one network and membership platform for Black women. And in getting that started, it was just about putting Black women in spaces and giving them opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't be presented with because they didn't have the platform or the numbers or the support behind them because they weren't big enough per se. But in getting that jump started, of course, like Jazz said, we ended up connecting. I just started doing events with Black Women Hustle, just getting everything started. And I was just like, I know a dope Black woman when I see one. I know a powerful, knowledgeable Black woman when I see one. So connected with her, had her from my workshops. Definitely, I met Reagan last month in August. I finally met Reagan in person, but we connected on Clubhouse. Adrian, of course, is today, but Jazz put me in a position to be here to speak with you all. And then just working on Black Women Hustle and getting in depth with it, it grew really fast, and in terms of promoting and supporting Black women, that is my business. It's one thing to just say you do it or for it to be a hobby or something like that, but every day I get to wake up and think, how can I uplift and support Black women, put more money in their pocket, put them in positions that, like I said before, they otherwise would not be in if somebody else who looked like them and believed in them didn't do it, So, so far it's grown a collective 100,000 women, over 100,000 women, Black women across the globe that I've connected with, from having bloggers in Africa, just Black women here in America who are literally just doing the work and uplifting themselves, one another, supporting, putting money in their pockets. That's the biggest thing. It's one thing for us to be the most educated by demographic, but the purpose of Black Women Hustle and now Black Women Hustle Society is to make us the most sought after and highest paid. So right now, I just launched the society. It's going really well. It's the membership platform that I've created for us. Black women are coming in, getting the knowledge through workshops. We're hosting masterminds, just collective uplift. And I'm just loving everything that's being presented by them and to them, and just watching them network and build community amongst one another is what it's all about. It's not just something we get to say, it's something we get to do and live and breathe like every single day. So it's just a blessing just to be able to grow it and to be here, of course, with you ladies and sharing this space.
I love that. I love that. And we'll include links to all of these organizations that you all support in the follow-up email as well with the recording of this conversation. So Reagan, I would love to hear from you too about how all of this group and just connecting with Black women more broadly has supported you in your business and your career path.
Yeah, and I hate to sound like I'm beating the dead horse of the group, but I think what was always important to me and instilled upon me at an early age is the power of community. My mother's an entrepreneur. I've seen what that looks like from like the ground up, from start to finish. And I knew that I can't do anything alone. I hate that notion of, oh, I'm self-made. I'm not self-made. Like I've done this with my tribe. I've done this with my people. I've done this with my team. And I'll go to Jasmine first because like I said, like she said earlier, we connected on Clubhouse and not knowing that we were in the same city because people think I live I don't know where people think I live, but it's not
everywhere.
Yeah. I don't know where everyone's always like, you live where? But Baltimore is home. And it was so funny when Jasmine and I both realized we live in the same city. We're from the same city. And it's like, how did we not know each other? Which is crazy, Jazz. Like, I still don't know how we did not know each other. But whatever, neither here nor there. But just being in conversations with Jazz and then her saying, well, hey, Reagan, you're going to be my go-to for this and vice versa, kind of aligned me with Adrian. And Adrian, we had a great time working together. I'm not done with you yet, sis. We are still, I'm still sending some stuff your way. So but yeah, Adrian and I worked on Where Are All the Black People together. And it was just an amazing time. One, for me as an HBCU graduate to help tell that story, but to get other HBCUs involved. And then LaShawn, same thing. We connected on Clubhouse. We met in August. And it just is dope to see women who are doing their thing, no ego, no competition, but just to be able to effectively collaborate and say, hey, sis, this is your space. Go off and be great. This is my space. And we can all meet in the middle.
I love that. I love that. And you all come from business strategy, different aspects of business. And, Adrian, I think with your experience in DEI, not everybody is an entrepreneur. Not everybody has the resources to start whatever it is that they're ready to work on. But I would love to hear from you in regards to seeking employment in predominantly white spaces where we are, underrepresented. What are some of the top 3 things that you think that Black women need to be prepared for before they go into those corporate interviews and job seeking opportunities?
Yeah, I think there's an expectation that as a Black woman that you're expected to be a catalyst for changing company culture. These are things that I don't agree with, but these are oftentimes the expectations of us. So we're supposed to take the lead in that and be responsible for creating an equitable workplace that's free from harassment and microaggressions. Or you might be tapped to help write a company statement on a tragedy like George Floyd's murder or on Black Lives Matters. Why? Because you're Black and a woman, right? And it doesn't even matter if your job function isn't HR related. Sometimes people just assume you're an expert because you're Black, right? Or a woman.
In digital marketing, and I've been asked to write many of those. It's yeah.
It's crazy. You may have to advocate for your own advancement. You'll likely have to advocate for a mentor or a sponsor or promotions, and maybe things like more funding for your employee resource group or events. And then third, you may be tapped to be a recruiter. Again, it's okay if your job function is in HR and you are a recruiter, but if you are just minding your business and you have a whole job to do, let's say you work in the tech side, they may ask you to show up at events and show that the company has diverse employees. So expect to do that again. Well, one thing that I will say, as you are applying for a job to kind of avoid that, you have to do your research. You want to make sure that the company has flexible work arrangements because life happens. You need to be able to, take off time when you need to take time, that there are mental health resources, that there are employee resource groups. Go to the website, check the company's mission statement as well, see what the company's about. And a lot of times some companies try to dance around certain words like Black Lives Mattered, and they may just say like, we support diversity. Like, no, I want you to outright say Black Lives Matters, right? I want you to outright say that George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, folks like that were murdered, right? And I think you could tell a lot about company culture by what they're willing to stand behind on their website. And then also their corporate responses. If you Google some of the things that they have put out in response to some of the major events that have taken place, that will tell you a lot. So before you even accept the job, I recommend looking into those things.
I like that. I never thought about looking up the press releases of a company before applying for a role. But yeah, so many of those things are so performative, and they can be, like you said, tap dancing around words or using words like cultural fit, on their website when they're simultaneously talking about diversity. It's like, okay, if you want diversity, then what is a cultural fit, right? Everybody comes from a different background. So that's great. That's great. I really appreciate that. Now with Jasmine, you are a solopreneur, you run your organization. There are a lot of businesses, particularly Black owned businesses, are one person operations or 2 or 3 people small. So it's harder for Black women to get loans for business and other resources than any other demographic in the United States, but they have been the most successful in the resources that they do receive in regards to education and other things. So what are some of the top 3 recommendations that you have for women who are looking to start out on their own, but don't necessarily have a lot to start with?
Yeah, it's always hard to give advice. There's so many things I just wish that I knew, or so many things that I wish I had. I think if I could just give those 3 without having to think too much into it, it's the beginning phases, which is get a business credit card, start there. That's the bare minimum of the get start, is get you a business credit card so that you can start building your credit, start building that credit history there, so that when it's time for something like PPPs, or there's time for, you know, you to actually ask for a loan for your storefront or whatever that looks like, you've already started with that due diligence. Now that is on the starting phase. If you're kind of in the start but that middle phase, it would be like, make sure that you really learn your audience. A lot of times we talk about like, oh, understand your target audience and et cetera. That's jargon for marketing community. People don't understand what that truly means. And so in their head, they're thinking, okay, my target is Black women. So it's like, my target is Black women. I'm just going to speak to Black women a certain type of way. But how are you building out your systems to really support a Black woman's experience? At our organization, our agency, with Miyoko, that's exactly what we had to do. Is like, you can't have calls during all these different times. You can't meet with your clients 2 and 3 times out of a week. A Black woman, ideally, the kind that we are looking for, is generally probably in a 9 to 5. That's how she's able to afford. And her business is a very, very, very vital part of, you know, her additional funding. And she loves it. And it's something that matters to her. But really getting into learning more and more about your audience is something that I just think a lot of people brush off, or they don't do the full due diligence work. Like they'll get into it and they're like, yeah, she's this age, yeah, she's this color, she's this, or whatever the case may be, but they don't dig into like, what's that person's story? What's that person's problem? Who are they likely to talk to? What ads are they likely to receive? The more data you collect, the easier it'll be later down the line to actually market to someone. So knowing that stuff helps your marketer when you're ready to hire one. That would definitely be 2. If I had the third one, it would be for everyone. Network across. We always like to think like networking up and, you know, trying to get people that are way far advanced and like get those access to those open doors. Build with the people that you have right now, because you don't know what people that are right with you unilaterally in the similar spaces, maybe 2 or 3 years ahead of you or whatever. You don't know where you guys can go in the 2 to 3 years as you continue to grow, but making sure that you just appreciate the people that are beside you also. There's so much knowledge in somebody that's going through it versus somebody that has went through it. Like somebody that's going through it can say, you know, hey, I just figured that out the other day. Here's how I did it. And they'll be more likely to show you because it's so fresh in their head. Versus when we're networking upwards, people are generally like, you know, they've gone through something maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and they might not remember exactly what tools they use or what systems they put in place. They can only tell you kind of anecdotal overview of what they've done. And so I would definitely say network across. So my 3 would be definitely like, learn your audience, network across, and get you a business credit card. So that those are the things that I think, if we're talking about what can truly set you up, that's where it goes. You need your people, you need to know your audience, and you definitely need to get your finances in order, but get a business credit card to start that process.
No, I appreciate that. That's really tactical and informative. Yeah, that's great. With LaShawn, you've been in a similar space to Jasmine with Black Women Hustle and being in digital marketing. So tell me a little bit about what the top 3 takeaways have been from the experience that you've had in starting this organization and this online community.
I'd say the first one is honestly the results, what Black women have gotten from it, because I always tell people, you know, people say my name, you know, like LaShawn Black Women Hustle, and I'm just like, you know, that's cool and everything. I'm very much a behind the scenes type of person, but it's what the women get from it for me. Like, I feel like I don't succeed unless they succeed. So just seeing them come together and say like, hey, after this, you know, we were able to start this mastermind, or I got this opportunity just from you posting this flyer. Like, I've been able to generate X amount of dollars from this campaign, or just being at this event because someone from Black Women Hustle like recommended this to me, or because you posted this and whatnot. And just seeing how they're able to thrive. That's probably been number 1 above all. 2 has probably been the community, knowing that it grew so fast, but knowing that you aren't alone. You know, just Black women realizing that you, no matter where you are, what space you're in, I guarantee you there's probably a couple thousand women who are in this organization, in this community, who've experienced the same, who are going through the same, who can help you through it. You know, knowing that there's someone to fall back on, you know, whenever you can't do it for yourself, because we all have those moments, especially as entrepreneurs. The shit is hard. You know, it's tough. So just knowing that they actually have other people they can always call on. And even when trying to find resources, like sometimes just like the DMs I get, like I can't find a manufacturer for XYZ. And I'm just like, okay, I might not know, but I know someone who's also in this industry who's I know she's accomplished this, or I know she's in this, or she has a similar company or background, being the connector and being able to put them with the right people and knowing that they have a community they can go to. Like, if I can't find it elsewhere, I know there's a place for me to go and I'm going to get the information I need. Last will probably be the events. And the events, it honestly ties into the community piece. I had Bea Dixon of the Honey Pot Company as a panelist in Atlanta. And just off of one of the vendors meeting her there, she had her on her show. So it's like, and that's someone she idolized, like she loves her dearly, and Bea is a dope person. So it's just knowing that, the events are being put out there, and women like Jasmine, having them come and teach women, and like I'm seeing the pictures and looking back and seeing how they're writing down notes and just being so proud and like posting about it and just being like, yo, I came to an event and I learned something. And then hearing the feedback afterwards, and they're just like, I stopped going to networking events because it was more of the same. Like Jazz said, it was the mean girl shit. Like, just women just coming, putting us in a room and just saying, hey, welcome, talk amongst yourselves type thing. I'm very strategic with it. It happens, but I'm very strategic with it. When you come to the event, I want to make sure that you're connecting with the right people. I'm calling you out and I'm asking, like, what do you do? Okay, who's doing something in a similar industry, so we can make sure y'all connect, because you're not just going to come here and leave with nothing. You have to leave with something, whether it be something tangible through gift bags and our beautiful sponsors from time to time, but more so for the knowledge and the people. And people underestimate networking, and those events give Black women the opportunity to actually build relationships. You get to sit at the table, but you don't just get to sit there and just kind of like watch everything happen. You have a voice, you get to speak up. Sometimes it's you getting on the mic and letting us know about your business and what you offer, and telling this to a room filled with the 30, 40, 50, 80 people, So it's the events, it's the community, and it's definitely the results and what Black women get in return from Black Women Hustle.
I love it. I love it. Reagan, LaShawn touched on the importance of networking and community and building those partnerships strategically. As a publicist, I'm sure that you and business strategist, you see a lot of the other side of that equation, which is the mistakes that we make as Black women when we're getting into business. So I would love to hear from you, what are 3 mistakes that you see people making when they're trying to build those relationships?
Yeah, I think what's important, right, is that it doesn't hurt you to help the next person. I hate that notion of, oh my God, it's so lonely at the top, because it's not lonely. You're just not bringing the right people with you. And I think sometimes we keep certain things for self when sharing information is key. It's vital to success, actually. Like, if I hold something to the chest, I'm not going to be successful that way. But if I can give that away, because you don't know if that's going to help the next person or not, like, that's what I'm going to do. So one, I think one of the things that keeps you down as a business owner is only keeping things to yourself. I think 2, it's not sharing your story, because I'll say that as a publicist, right? I run into so many Black women who, I don't want to tell my story, but you never, and at one point, I developed epilepsy at 22. And at one point I was nervous of sharing that story, but my story helped heal so many people. So I have to share that often, because it's not for me to keep to my chest, but it's for me to help that next person moving forward. So I think 1 is keeping things to your chest. 2 is not sharing your story. And I think 3 is not formulating the proper team, because we think, oh my God, I can do it alone. I said earlier that no one is self-made. I can't do anything without my team. And I merged my company as of January. So I've been doing PR for almost 10 years. I merged my company as of January with another young lady by the name of Deja Cromartie. We feel like 2 heads are more powerful than 1. And if we came together, that we would just be able to cover more ground in business. So know that you can't do everything alone, that sometimes a team is necessary.
I love that. Now, you touched on something important, and I'm gonna circle it back to you, actually, Reagan, because you shared your story. And I know that when we were in our planning call for this conversation, we all kind of talked a little bit about that imposter syndrome and this need that Black women, this kind of knee-jerk reaction to mute ourselves, especially when we are in predominantly white spaces, and kind of being afraid to share our stories. So give us some tangible things for Black women who are scared to step into themselves and see it more as bragging rather than just being real, like, hey, I'm dope, this is what I do,
One of my, it's funny that you said that. So we were doing an event, me and Deja were doing an event with the NAACP. I actually used to work internally for them, but had gotten laid off. Then they became a client. So we talk about testimony, right? And I won't get 100% spiritual, but it wouldn't be me if I didn't say thank God. Because back to my epilepsy. So in 2016, I crashed into a brick wall, went into oncoming traffic, went like 400 feet, couldn't walk. So I say I went from not walking to walking red carpets. And if you know that God isn't, if you, and again, not forcing on anyone, but I wouldn't be who I am today without that. I wouldn't be who I am today without faith. I wouldn't be who I am today without all these things that make me me, right? And I gotta be grateful for those things. I gotta be grateful for the little Black girl from Baltimore who they said wasn't gonna make it, who's now at the BET Awards, the Hip Hop Awards, like just so many different things, because they say that we can't do those things. They say that we aren't able. And I think sometimes we get into the notion of, oh, I don't want to share my story. Oh, I don't want to talk about, different elements of me, but why not? Because again, that can help heal someone else. That can show, because Adrian didn't give up, or because LaShawn didn't give up, or because Jasmine didn't give up, I can do the same thing. So we have to stop with, oh, I don't want to brag. Because why not? Why don't you? You've come too far not to showcase your success. So girl, brag on yourself. Like that's just how I feel.
Amen. And I asked that question because honestly, I struggle with it a lot too. It's tough to really put yourself out there. And I think even when you're marketing yourself, to be able to build those partnerships with other businesses, sometimes you're second guessing yourself, where you're like, will they take me seriously? Will they not, when you're starting out? So, LaShawn, since you have built this, online community of women who have all been able to support each other and, have these events that have been so successful, what are some of the challenges in building those partnerships for Black female entrepreneurs? And do you think that with the momentum that we have right now, in this new era that we're all in, where people are really like paying attention to Black women in a different way, do you see any kind of changes or trends that are moving in our favor?
So I said, so I think the hardest challenges are the most common, and that's just being told yes. Well, actually, I'd say honestly being told no from some of the larger companies, white companies, honestly. But it's something that we've all faced. We're all Black women. We know what it feels like. We have literally the same issues, no matter where we are, who we are. Like, it's the same thing, same story for all Black women. But one thing I've learned is that we have to just kind of accept people and companies for exactly who they are. And once we acknowledge that, move the hell on and find the people who will give us the yes. And if they won't give it to us, we build it ourselves. Plain and simple. That's how I began navigating things. And just in terms of like partnerships, like Jazz said, work across. Like there are other Black women out here who are building businesses, corporations, and all the things that we can still support, or they're actually reaching back and pulling forward. It's like, we can look at people like Bill Gates and all like the common names that you see, like, why is Janice Bryant Howard not in the conversation? Like, why don't you ever hear her name brought up whenever we're talking about these people in these spaces, in terms of connecting and whatnot? She has all of these companies under her belt. Why have you not tried reaching out to her instead of the people that's you're going to have that hesitant and like, they may or may not say, or maybe they think because we're Black or we have this type of name. Like I have hustle in my business name, and a lot of people don't see that as professional. Do you think that's going to stop my bag? Absolutely fucking not. Has not stopped it yet and still pushing, So I just think it's and not to put the blame on us at all, but because of all the obstacles we face, it becomes fear. It's internalized, and a lot of us feel like, okay, well, because they might not, let's structure it this way so they can say yes, so they won't think it's too Black or it's too urban or something like that. Show up as your full self, because that's exactly who the hell they're gonna get as soon as they say yes.
Can I say something there?
Go ahead.
So many people reach out to me and they always say, well, Reagan, I don't want to box myself in calling myself a Black business. And I'm like, the math not mathing, because at a prime time when it's a great time to be Black, if you feel like you're going to alienate your audience, that's your problem. Because again, I don't want anyone who won't support my little black business, my little black ass business. Like, I don't want anybody who's not going to do that. Like, why would I invest in an audience who's scared of me because of the color of my skin? So if you are a person that's like, oh, well, I don't want to say my business is black, or, I don't want to put that out there, put that out there, because it is a prime time to be black today, tomorrow, and always. So stop thinking that you're going to alienate your audience because it's a black business. Sorry.
And honestly, no. And honestly, it's why a lot of people are telling us yes, because of everything that happened last year. All these companies are now saying yes. Like I said before, there were companies who reached out in email like, hey, we're doing this initiative. We're doing small highlights of, and literally said like little highlights like these in the email. And I'm like, no, the fuck you didn't give me a little highlight. Like, you come to me for a little highlight. No, nigga, I want a full spread is what I want. So I was like, well, who sent you? How'd you find out about us? Why? Like, I'm asking the questions, and then some of them came back and were just like, okay, well, we know we haven't always done the best job. That's cool. They was like, just get back at us when we're comfortable. Sure. I'm going to give you a whole year, which I did, and went back. Do I see any change in those platforms? Do I see any change in what they've delivered? Absolutely not. But a lot of them are still telling us yes. And now you're seeing more collaborations with Black women in partnership with all of these companies who once either had like issues like Nike and like Allison Felix and things of that nature. And like, you're now seeing those companies partner with other Black women and giving them the spotlight and everything. And part of me feels like, I'm proud of the Black women because they deserve it. For period, they deserve it. But at the same time, I want us to get this without the pity. Don't do it because you feel bad and you don't want to suffer. You don't want your image to look bad and y'all want to look good for the press. Do it because good and damn well we deserve to be here and we deserve these opportunities.
Amen. Amen. I think one of the things that has come up a lot is like normalizing this, like, because we're showing up now as our authentic selves, we're normalizing the fact that Black women come from all spectrums, all backgrounds, and they're all very successful in what they do. And it's okay to be exactly who you are in that space. You don't have to change it up for anybody else. But unfortunately, there's been such a history of not normalizing Black people in those spaces that when you see a successful Black person, everybody's like, oh, wow, look at that, as if it's something that's abnormal when really it's not, just like you were saying about, the different people who are in those spaces already. And, Adrian, I'd love to hear from you, for people who are not necessarily starting their own businesses, but we hear a lot about corporations having a pipeline issue in regards to hiring Black people in predominantly white companies. And, there's this, argument going on online about whether or not that's a myth. So I would love to hear a little bit more about what the pipeline issue is that people are referencing, whether or not you believe that it's real. And if it is real, how do you see a way forward in fixing it?
Yeah, so essentially the pipeline issue is we don't have enough Black talent, right? We would hire them if they were out there, which always is just so comical to me. But I will say that some of it is real and some of it is BS, and I can explain. So for instance, like if we look at STEM careers, right? Science, technology, Black women made up 2.9% of the people who graduated with bachelor degrees in STEM, and Latinas made up 4.3%, right? Those numbers are low. And it's a problem. However, what we're not going to do is just say, well, that's it. Guess we're just not going to have Black women and Latinas in STEM. You have to look at that problem and say, what organizations can we invest in to correct that problem? There are organizations out there like Black Girls Code, for instance, that do exactly that. And so instead of just putting your hands up and saying there's nothing we can do, pour your resources financially, but also sending, employees to volunteer, promote this event, donate to them whenever you can so that we can increase those numbers. And then some of it is BS, because what a lot of companies like to do is be lazy. Like I worked, at a law firm before, and what they tended to do in terms of hiring is lateral. So just take, Black attorneys from another firm and just bring them over to yours. And agencies do that as well. I see it all the time. It's just like, oh, we need a copywriter. Let's just steal the copywriter from this place. It's easy because the person is already, trained. They already know how to do the work, instead of looking at people who may be in, tangential fields who might be able to do the work, let's say like journalism, and maybe they need some training, right, to learn how advertising specifically works, but they're lazy. They want to just get the person that can just jump into the seat. So stealing talent from competitors. I say that doing the work also means reaching out to Black professional organizations and promoting jobs there, right? And also building relationships. Don't just think like, oh, I'll just post this one vacant position and everything is all good. No, building long-standing relationships. Go to their galas, go to their events, have a presence. I would say making connections with HBCUs. Like that is literally why we brought in Reagan and the IMG team for Where Are the Black People, because we're like, you know what, this event needs more of a connection with HBCU students, but we want to do it in an authentic way, right? We're not just going to show up when we have our event and just be like, come. We want to talk to people who went to HBCUs and say, how do we do this authentically? How do we talk to students? And even beyond that, right? Like Reagan was saying, oh, there's a career fair in October. Can you show up? Yes, that's after the event, but so what? We need to build long-standing relationships, not just when you need someone. Because think about it in the real world. If somebody only came up to you when they needed a favor, maybe the first time you'll do it, the second time you do it, but the third time you're gonna be like, hold on now. Like, you know, you never check on me any other time except when you need something. So of course you're not gonna have that relationship, right? So you have to look at it that way. So in general, I think companies need to stop being lazy. They need to start thinking outside of the box, and they need to be authentic and real with themselves about how they're recruiting and reaching out to people.
Yeah, I've always felt like the real pipeline issue is that companies like that are not being intentional about seeking the talent at where they're actually at. You know, they're going to the same old resources to get, and they're going to get the same results every time. It doesn't mean that the talent isn't there. It just means you're not being strategic in finding them where they are and building those long-term relationships so that the people who are on the receiving end don't feel like, you know, it's just more tokenism and, you know, trying to throw a bone and say, oh, look, you know, we tried our best and that's it, I guess.
Right.
But
So, you know, I'm just gonna tag in here, but in addition to what Adrian is saying too, is that once you find the talent, it's the retention part that I find has a lack of care. Or a lack of empathy or priority, if you will. It's that retention. So building out a experience that is supportive of what you are deeming a diverse community or a diverse workplace. Like, you know, I'm not saying that my workspace looks all Black women, but you know, I'm not saying that every job has to be you're working with all Black women, but am I working with people that are older? Am I working with people that are younger? Am I working with people from all different backgrounds? Am I working with people that were in the military that served or not served? Like, what does that look like? And understanding what real diversity looks like. Now, as Black people, we are going to do a little bit more of that due diligence work because we have to get into these spaces in order to even diversify some of them. And so it's really the retention part that we lack. It's the fact that the organization has policies in place that don't support your lifestyle or don't support a household that is, you know, solely dependent on one woman's income, you know, and it's stuff like that. So then it's not that we can't find them, we found them, but we can't pay them because we're not, you know, we're giving them all these additional roles on top of paying them poorly. And then now we have high turnover whenever it comes to Black people. And it's not high turnover when it comes to Black people. It's high turnover because your company culture is not supportive of lifestyles that are similar to a Black person's experience. And so that's really, it's actually not finding people anymore. I know that we all, you know, have these opportunities to say like, it is finding people, but like Adrian's mentioning, it goes beyond that. What does a long-term play look like? And the long-term play includes your consumer experience, your employee experience, and that's where everyone is falling short. I don't think there's anyone that I know that is not falling short internally with the retention.
Amen. Amen. And one thing that also Adrian also brought up, I'll ask you, Jasmine, to piggyback off of that is finding numbers that are accurate about who is in these spaces, who's in these roles. And I know that you, Jasmine, mentioned that trying to find statistics on Black women in marketing was really challenging for you. So tell us a little bit about, you know, why that you think that was difficult and what you think that speaks to in regards to the bigger issue of being underrepresented in the professional space statistics wise, that the data is not even being collected on where we are and where, you know, where we could go.
Yeah, so when I look at my network, right, I look at a bunch of Black women, right? I got LaShawn here, I got Adrian. Like, I have my network is all Black women. Now, I think it was a Clubhouse room where LaShawn and some other colleagues, like my acting mentors, basically pointed out that like I've been privileged. Like, I've been privileged to have Black women marketers in an entirely Black network that has always like helped me level up. My very first marketing job was with a Black mayor. And so because of that, I literally just got into marketing, stayed into marketing when I was in DC for a year and a half. Literally, I was scouted to go to DC. One of my mentors at the time, she had interviewed for my role and she said, you know, I was fresh out of college. She's like, you know, this role is a little too, you know, it's not advanced enough for me. And the pay is not matching my investment. I told them that you would be the best fit. I got the job. Like there was that there's no other reason I got the job. Yeah, my experience matched, whatever, but her voice, like that's what matched. So for me, when I was going through and looking for statistics, you know, LaShawn has been such a great resource of like, you know, sharing how membership works and building community with the membership. So when I started building Black women marketers, I was like, all right, well, let's look at the real data. Let's see what these numbers look like. Go. And I sat there because like I know you lying. Like that was when I was like, I know you fucking lying. I know y'all lying to me. There has to be one art, like there's actually only one article that gives you details and numbers about even close to what it looks like to be Black in marketing. Not Black women, y'all know how that go, but Black in marketing. So of that, we were able to get to a number that we believe based on that document says 5%. So if you see my shirt was 6%. 6% of Black women marketers are like, that's it, are Black women. Like, that's it. That's 6%. I couldn't believe that that was even a number because my network is so reciprocated of a different number. It's 100% for me. And so I think it's hard to find those numbers because they don't care. They don't care to have to document these types of things. And for people that get into you know, once you go from your resume to your interview process, a lot of us put don't know what color I am. We put don't know what sex I am, what's my sexual orientation. We don't know nothing because I know you got some bias. So you don't get to know anything. And that part, unfortunately, that's where a lot of them get their data from to say, oh, 98% of the people that are reaching out are women or 62% are this or that. That is a part of the problem, right? Like we have so many issues that impact the way that we are going about getting these numbers and getting this data. So our team decided that we would stick to the 6% one, which is one that we believe was more accurate of what Black women marketers looks like. And the only thing I can say is like, my job is to increase that number every single day. Like every single day I need to wake up and say what job opportunities are out here, what professional development, what skill set training is out here, who needs to be connected to who, what information can I share, who do I need to tap on the back and remind them that their prices are too low. Like what do I need to do when people call me to negotiate? They're always like, you know, you're the whisperer for salary negotiation. Fine, but call me before you accept that opportunity, because I've had 2 friends in the last month who received 20,000 less than what they even asked for. Like, what type of disrespect is that for them to then make 20 on top of what they were asking for? So you gave me 37K when I asked you for 57K, and now you're paying me 77K. What type of disrespect is that? And how does that make someone feel, right? When they now have to work for you, having to have negotiated that hard for them. And the reality is not what can you pay me? What can you do for me? I bring the value to your team. Your team has a void. I am said void filler. I think there needs to be a perspective shift. In some of these organizations is acknowledging that, honey, your payment is reliant on my services. So if you have me on your team, you get paid more. If you don't have me on your team, you don't. Therefore, I am an investment for you. And you need to think through that and honor that a little bit differently. So for us, when we looked at those numbers, I just said, like, this can't be the story, and this can't be, this ain't gonna be our situation. I know too many Black women marketers, and I keep looking at the agency life, and I look at it and I see how Black women are just like, nah, I'm done. I'm gonna go start my own and do their own. And like Adrian alluded to before, there's part bullshit and it's part flawed. So the part that's bullshit is that, you know, we do have some issues filling out your resume, your orientation, all of that type of stuff is that. But on the flip side of that, the real truth is that there are some flaws that we have when you go to build your own business. Understanding systems, you know, understanding how to create an experience that is valuable and that is worthy for someone, and one that matches your audience. You know, I don't run a solopreneur business. Like, you wouldn't know that I'm the CEO and that we have a whole team behind. You wouldn't know, you know, that I'm the CEO. A lot of people don't know because that's not my focal point. The focal point is the team. Now, do I make all of those tough decisions and calls and everything? Absolutely, but we don't operate that way. We have a bunch of systems in place that allow us to really support the women that are coming through that are looking for digital marketing, and we can put them into these strategy plans and get them going. But that is not always the case. And so of the flaws, there is some professional development, some skill set training for building your own business that we just have not had access to entirely, or and that history hasn't been passed down, even though we've had Black owned businesses for some time now. That history and that knowledge hasn't been passed down. So a lot of the work that Black women marketers does is prepare people inside of, you know, their marketing business to really say, okay, what's the setup? What are the systems that will work for my business? What's that CRM? What's that project management? What are we getting our clients for Christmas? How do we plan this out? This isn't a gig. This is my lifestyle.
I appreciate something that you touched on as well, because I just launched the pre-sale for an online course that I've been building, and it was so hard for me to come up with the price, because in my mind, because I knew it was such an unapologetically Black topic and subject matter, in my mind, I'm thinking like, oh, I have to price it lower than the industry standard because otherwise people aren't going to buy it. You know what I mean? But it's like this thing that's in the back of your mind that you're not going to be accepted, and you do kind of sell yourself short sometimes. So I think there is the mindset of the organizations that we're stepping into that needs to change. But there's also a mindset in ourselves where we shouldn't be apologizing for asking for exactly what we deserve, you know? Absolutely. I love that. And LaShawn, since you have started Black Women Hustle, you mentioned that, you know, having hustle in the name may not sound professional to other people, but you're very unapologetic about that. So tell us about how you have been able to maintain that authenticity as you've been able to scale your organization up.
You already said it's just unapologetic. Black all day, every day, period. Like, I tell people, like, been telling people like forever, I literally take no shit behind Black women. Even when we were in professional spaces in Clubhouse filled with white faces, I take no shit behind Black women. And then it's standing up for Black women and making sure people know, like, Jazz, I think if you remember Clubhouse, there was a room. You know exactly what I'm talking about. There was a room and it was filled with like, I think it was white marketers, majority. And there was a Black woman on the stage and she was trying to get her point across, and they act like sister no shit. Like, they acted like she was the most like, no, we don't really like that one. Let's not use that example. And then another white person used the same exact thing, and they were just like, you know what? Put it up on the board. Like, it's brilliant. And we were just like, okay, so we all heard this, right? Right. All right, say less. Let's go create a room. We're going to talk about this and call everybody ass out, because absolutely not. So when it comes to me, Black Women Hustle, anything Black women, it's literally being unapologetic about who we are. Because like I said, at the end of the day, I could change the business name, present it to you in the most professional way, however you define professional. But when you say yes, what you're going to get is this Black woman in all her fullness. Like, what you're going to get is the Black woman I'm bringing with me in all their fullness. Like, it's literally being unapologetic and having each other's back, so that everybody knows, like, all right, if she stand up for herself, like, that's cool. But even if she don't, she do or don't, I'm going to be right here behind her. Like, I got you. So what's up? Like, what we need to do, how we need to pivot. Like, what do we need to do to make sure you get what you need? So unapologetic, sis, that's it.
Yeah, and LaShawn is really a huge advocate of that because when I first met LaShawn, I was in my journey of the process of understanding that I could be my full authentic self in business, and it did not. I came from politics, right? So I started in the political world. So you are who you have to be. You are never who you are. Who you are is how you gonna get your ass written up on all of these press releases. You can't be nobody. You are whoever you need to be in order to not be in the tabloids. You know what I mean? And so LaShawn was definitely a part of my process of understanding that. But after, going through the understanding of what LaShawn was teaching me about truly being unapologetic, came a whole different topic of like how often I had assimilated and how, Nardos, you kind of talked about this, but that assimilation formed fear of rejection, fear of confidence, fear, like just fear for no reason. Why am I fearful of y'all? Like, why am I fearful of people who, you need me, you called me. I didn't call you. I didn't go to Nike and say, hey, what's up with y'all? Y'all called me. I didn't ask y'all what was good. I seen the store. I seen what was in there. I seen the new release. I'm good. I don't have that type of money to be buying no tennis shoes. I wear heels. So what y'all seeing? I don't need y'all. So it was the reality of assimilation and not being your true authentic self actually creates more fears down the line. That's when you're not able to advocate or negotiate for your work because you're like, oh, I don't want to be aggressive. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be that. Had you came in as your most authentic self going in day one, it allows you the opportunity to say like, yeah, okay. So, I failed on a project. Great. Things happen. I failed. This is my one that I'm going to own. What lessons did I learn from this? Here, I still think I'm worthy of these X, Y, and Z rate changes. One, because price and demand, but like cost of living. But outside of that, realistically, I deserve this because here's what I've done in your organization outside of said failure, right? And so I really do, one, thank you, LaShawn, but two, I credit a lot of the unapologetic work, sharing the stage with LaShawn in the rooms and saying like, this is who I am. A lot of the unraveling happened during Clubhouse where I got to say, I don't have to be this political jazz anymore, this jazz that is always trying to keep it cute and make sure that my fro looks good or whatever. Now I can show y'all, we're going to take tequila shots at 5, all of us. If there is a problem with taking these tequila shots, I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? We're going to take these tequila shots and we're going to go to this client photo shoot together, everyone in one accord, and realistically, I'll tell you, my bag got bigger the moment that people started to realize that I wasn't just this political person who was always working with politicians and, political agencies. They're like, oh, wow. Like, I think the other day someone DM'd me was like, I did not know you drink as much as you drink. And I was like, ideally, I would think that was a little offensive back in the day, but I'm like, you're right, because I did an entire year. I started January 1 of saying more than a business owner. So I'm not a business owner, that is one very, very small title in my life. The title I like is rich aunt. I like that one better than I like business owner. So like really understanding who you are, that aids a lot in, definitely in conjunction with, LaShawn is saying that aids a lot in the long-term development, even as you are growing as a business owner. It's truly being your authentic self. You just have to own who you are. If they dig it, they dig it. If they don't, they just don't.
I think people also have to revisit how they define professionalism as well. Right.
Like sometimes like this, and I don't care. And guess who's making the decisions? Period. Like I'm telling you, I'm running down things. If I need to show up like this, I could also dress up too. But you might get different ratings, different days.
Different days.
Yeah.
And to that point, the other thing is like, we have to do that unraveling on our own, but some of it was ingrained in us from a long time. Like I remember being in law school and my 2 best friends in law school were Black women, and one was sitting on the right of me, one was sitting on the left of me. And someone made a comment like, you guys shouldn't sit together. And it was a Black person. You guys shouldn't sit together in class because it looks like you only want to talk to Black people. And I'm looking around and seeing other people sitting next to folks of the same race and no one else says anything, and we were, the only Black women in our class. And I'm just like, why is it a problem when we do it? Or entering certain spaces where I used to work and I was one of the few Black people, and I would come in with my braids or, and people would comment on it, and knowing that if I didn't want people to comment on it, then I should come looking a certain way. I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't like that. I want to come as myself, right? So I've been the happiest where I am right now, in the field that I am right now, where I can come in my jeans, I could come in my braids, I could be on panels and literally working with people who look like me. And it's so freeing. Like, even at the beginning, before, we started this panel, the conversation we're able to have that's just so relaxing. It's like, to people who are scared to take the plunge and the leap to be their full authentic, it is so freeing. I promise you, to just not have to worry about what people think anymore. And it's just like, this is who I am. If you like it, you like it. And as Jasmine said, your bag will grow. Like, I have had more opportunities being myself than I feel like I had when I needed to fit into this box in order to be acceptable in some of these corporate spaces that I was in. So it pays to be authentic.
Same, and you don't have to
literally.
If suited and booted is not your thing, like I get paid just to be Reagan Farley. So like, if suited and booted is not your thing all the time, don't be suited and booted. If we want to throw in a little Nipsey Hussle, a little Hove, a little Meg Thee Stallion twerk music on social media and be yourself, that's what you're going to get from my social media page. There's no one way to do everything, right? Like, because Adrian does something a certain way, I don't have to do it that way. Because LaShawn does something a certain way, I don't have to do it that way. Because Jazz does something, what works for you will work for you, and only time will tell that. So I think, like they said, when you're showing up as your authentic self, baby, you will not go wrong. So don't be scared. Like, do it. And even if you are, do it now and do it scared.
Amen. And I think the fear piece is it speaks to all of us, and no matter where you come from. I think as Black women, especially, it's something that you mentioned, Adrian, I lived in Colorado for a long time, obviously very predominantly white workspaces, and you were almost always the only Black person in your department, but then you would run into other Black people in the company in like the elevator or something, and you would get so excited. It felt like a family reunion or something, and but then if you're like all standing around at a cubicle, you would start to notice like the heads turning if you're standing there for too long, talking to each other. And you kind of have this like fear thing of like, okay, disperse, like we can't be seen standing here talking to each other for too long. And it's unfortunate that we have had that ingrained in our minds for so long that we're going to get a target on our back somehow. But I do agree that it's very freeing when you let go of all of that noise, and and the relationships that you build in business become more organic as well. But in regards to, going into these predominantly white spaces, Adrian, I'd love to hear, because you mentioned about one of the issues and things that we need to be prepared for in going into those spaces is being kind of held up as, okay, this is a person who's going to fight for equitable policies. And it's unfair to put that on any one person or any, group of people within an organization, especially if you're not, hired as a decision maker for those things. But we do feel the sense of a desire to make things more fair for ourselves as well as our colleagues. So give us some tips on how we can balance that when we get into these spaces.
Yeah. So my first advice is to be good at your job. I know that sounds crazy, but if you want people to listen to you and you want sort of like, that power, you have to be good at your job, because it's like, dang, we don't want to lose, Reagan. We don't want to lose LaShawn or Jasmine, because they bring in business. The clients love them. So maybe we should hear out what they're saying, right? Also, not everyone may be in this position, but if there's a leader or someone in power that you can trust, start with them. And trust in the business world that's real sketchy, because there could be someone who you think is on your side, who you think you could trust. And then, so this is someone who you feel like you could trust. If that doesn't work out, like, but someone who you feel like is an advocate, someone who's on your side, go to them first and say, like, this is what's going on. I didn't like the company's response to X, right? And I want to know how we can change that. Then also, I would say, have your facts ready, like statistics, articles, research, because the first thing that, like my CEO always says is like, what's the business case? Or like, show me what other companies are doing or what other competitors are doing. So that's if you want to just go the traditional route. I would say, like, if those don't work, coalition building is important. Like, get together with your colleagues who are feeling the same way. I know one of my colleagues, she has a Slack channel with other Black employees, and they sit there and they go in on their Slack channel. And then, like, if everybody's feeling the way about a certain topic, they might send a mass email out to leadership. And it's like, these are all the people who stand, behind us. They're not trying to have 90% of their Black employees leave at once, right? So there's strength in numbers. So that's one thing. And then my last piece of advice is you don't have to put up with it, right? Like, I don't know everyone's financial situation. Like, I know I left a job before because I was unhappy and I was like, you know what? These coins are not even worth my sanity. So I'm out. But some people have kids to feed, they have a mortgage to pay or what have you. So we have to be real about that. So if that is appropriate for you, I would say leave. Right now, this is, the employee market, okay? 70% of companies right now have a talent shortage. So if there was any time to leverage that and be like, listen, if you don't make these changes, I'm out, this is the time, okay? So I would say leave, because you do not need to sacrifice, again, like I said, your mental health, your wellness, all that talent you have, because there's another company out there that will be so grateful to have you, and you won't have to sit there and fight for your voice to be heard, or something as basic as saying Black Lives Matter. Like, that was a debate, okay, at some companies. And if you are somewhere where you are celebrated, you won't have to deal with that. So I would say if those other things, don't work, leave, please.
Amen. Amen. I think that's part of that fear that we have too about speaking up for ourselves in business and at work, is that we're afraid that there's nowhere else for us to land. And that's, that's also a false narrative that's been ingrained in our minds, that there's some limitation for seats at the table for Black women. And, if you're good at your job and you have the talent and you have the, skill set, there is a place for you to go. But I appreciate you bringing up the fact that right now is particularly, open season for Black women in business and in corporations as well. You mentioned coalition building, and I would like to change it up a little bit with this question and pose it to all of you, whoever would like to jump in first. Coalition building and supporting Black women is all beautiful, but I know we all have had negative experiences as well in being in business or working with other Black women. So I'd love to hear from all of you. How do you maintain that focus on lifting Black women up, but also holding each other accountable in business without, furthering any negative stereotypes about who we are in our spaces? Whoever would like to jump in first.
I think go ahead, Reagan.
No, go ahead, LaShawn. You good?
No, I was about to say for me, it's really just been having the hard conversations. Like, even when we do like masterminds and things of that nature, it's like, okay, we're gonna build each other up. But if it's some foul shit going on, if we know, okay, like, you do know, like, you got this carbon copy from like somebody else, right? Like, we got to have a conversation about it, like having difficult conversations to keep each other accountable, but also making sure that it's not just criticism and tearing each other down. Like, okay, we're going to give you the constructive criticism that you need and make sure you understand first, and then we can move forward and make sure we keep building together. But it's accountability is key in terms of how we stay connected and truthful with one another. Like, I think Adrian said it earlier, like, the trust is a big issue. Like, it can be sticky sometimes, but we also have to realize that if we don't have us, who else gonna have us?
And there's a way to do that. There's a way to do that and not be nasty, right? Like, there's a way to do that where if you know how you come across in text message, just pick up the phone. Like, if you know your emails can be a little bit snarky, send a voice memo. Jazz knows I'm famous for being like, girl, da 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 in the voice memo, because you get to hear my tone of voice. And maybe in text message, you might have thought I said it one way, but if you hear my voice, I didn't say it in that way. So I think sometimes it's knowing yourself, knowing how you come across to people, picking up the phone. Sometimes everything is not a text message, building that relationship, because I know if Jasmine says something to me, it's out of love. I'm not going to get mad at it. I'm going to say, well, girl, maybe I do need to fix that, because she's going to pick up the phone and she's going to say, well, sis, I don't know. You get what I'm saying? So I think it's about knowing your circle, knowing how to respond, but also knowing yourself and knowing what you should respond to, because everything is also not an attack on you. And I think sometimes it's like, I'm an artist, so I'm sensitive about my shit. It's being passionate about those things, but also knowing that everyone isn't out to get you either.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, because I'm
Love
super soft. Like I'm definitely super soft. And so everybody knows that they have to give criticism, right, to me in a very soft way, or I'm not going to receive it well. Because if it does not come with solution, then it's just an attack. So it has to be critique plus solution for me. And that makes me feel like, okay, cool, there's a way out of this, not that we're attacking. What I have learned though, especially like when you like, I've been very blessed that I haven't worked with older Black women, but I know that there is a real issue with some older Black women in the workspace. And what I've been seeing so far, kind of paying attention to a trend, is the trend is that they attack character and not attack product. Like, what is the project? What is the issue with the project? Don't say you weren't timely or anything like this. The project was late, removing the personal out of it. It is about the project and the product, whatever was produced. That is the issue. And that has been really helpful. Like I know a lot of women always give me insight feedback because I asked for it. And so I know I'm opening my own wound when I ask for it. When I ask for it now, I'm very clear. Let me know what's wrong with the product. Let me know what's wrong with the issue there. Don't talk about me as a person. Me as a person is not going to be the issue. And if I am the issue, you say it in an objective way. Well, we're used to this. We think this project would do better if, you know, we meet the deadlines consistently. That means that I haven't been meeting the deadlines consistently, but it's not a personal attack. And so I think, you know, being open and honest about how you receive criticism and feedback is also helpful, because for me, I know I'm super soft. LaShawn will tell you I'm super soft, and I am definitely that person that's like, oh no, I'm full of range of emotion. And you know, once you start attacking me, it starts to feel like you're attacking me. And so when you make it objective and about the product, that has been really helpful. I've seen that happening in the industry a lot lately. It's like kind of walking people through how to do that, and also just exercising upfront how you receive feedback, making sure you stick to the product though, and not necessarily sticking to the person or their character or whatever, because we never know, like, you know, we just never know. Things that I battled with for years, I had no idea. And just like Reagan had you know, learn to share her story, I had to learn to share my diagnoses. Like, who knew I had ADHD from being so fully functioning, building a business, being, you know, A+ student all throughout school? That's the exact definition of ADHD for Black women. It's, you probably were the, you know, the top student and you function really, really well. And the minute that you're interested in things that you're not really truly interested in, you just plummet. And then you can fall into an anxiety or depression because you're like, I have this huge to-do list that I'm not tackling because I'm not able to function. And so keeping those things in mind now, those are all things that I go into when I'm asking people to provide feedback. Now, last point, during Black Women Marketers, we had a happy hour last month. And you know, during that happy hour, someone asked that they basically said, it was a question that came from, where did all the Black people go? Where were all the Black people from? Adrian's, we did the workshop, and we put the question into Black Women Marketers at our happy hour. And so the question was, basically, there was a woman, and she is a Black woman, and she was hiring a younger Black woman, and she felt like the younger Black woman was not advocating for herself. And she's also, you know, like, her personally, she's an advocate for the company. So she's saying, what are those obligations, and like, what does that kind of look like when you're in a 60 situation, right? Business owners, we want to get things as cheap as we can get them. That's business. That has nothing to do with personal, but how it plays into someone's personal, we have a responsibility to pay attention to that. And so, you know, that was a question that we had on the table. And a lot of people ended up saying that it's dependent on how you respond, number one, but that you have to decide what is your true loyalty and your true mission. For me, it would be easy that I'm giving this young Black woman all the tools she needs to come back to me with a better negotiation plan. Because I don't have a loyalty to this company. The company could tell me all they wanted to get her for $30,000. That is not my problem. The problem is that you asked me to get her, and I'm telling you how I'm going to get her, and how I'm going to get her is also by pulling her up.
I love that. I love that. Adrian, I'd love to hear your thoughts too.
Yeah, I love everything that was said. And like, at the beginning of working with a new client, a new partner, I'd love to establish like, how do you like to get feedback? And how do you want to give me feedback, right? It should be a reciprocal thing. And I really, really love what you said, Reagan. I love what you said, Jasmine. Also, I love that idea about removing the person and focusing on the project. Also, something that's big for me is having these conversations in private. I don't like being messy. Like, we're grown. And so, when you see people just putting things on social media or running to tell all these other people, like, first have this conversation, give the person a chance to respond, give the person a chance to correct, have an adult conversation, because I think a lot of people struggle with having difficult conversations. So rather than talk to someone about something that you didn't like and giving them a chance to respond, sometimes it's easier to start like talking to other people. And I think that gets into that mean girl thing that you were talking about, Jasmine, right? Because it's easier to be a mean girl than it is to be a grown woman, right? And to have those conversations, say, this is what isn't working. So I would say, whenever you can, take the grown woman approach. Have those private conversations, approach people. And if you need a minute to reflect, because sometimes, let's say something really didn't go the way you wanted, and your default is like, I'm upset. Don't go to someone when you're upset and full of emotion, right? If you are one of those people that can't separate the two, give yourself a minute, think through your talking points, think through what needs to be said so that you can approach them in a mature way and actually, get the results you need to do so you can move forward.
Amen. I love that you brought up the social media thing, because I don't know what it is about, like, putting other Black businesses on blast on social media, Black Twitter. I don't get it. Like, it's so destructive, and it does not help further the narrative of our success and our excellence at all. And I feel like that one negative experience can damage the entire trajectory of someone's business. And that might be the only time that ever happened with that person. Like, they may never have that experience with any other client, but the damage that you've done to their reputation is already there. And it's really unfortunate. But in regards to social media and other channels, I'd love to hear, Reagan, a little bit about, with the self-doubt that we have, with the hesitation that we have in breaking into other spaces. As a publicist, how do you recommend Black women find the right channels to tell their story, where their story is going to not just be received well, but be the most effective in building lasting relationships with their audience?
Okay, do that for me one more time, Nardos, because I hit Siri by mistake and you like literally went out because Siri started talking.
You are all good. No worries. So we're talking about self-doubt and, finding the right channels to tell your story. So how do you recommend that Black women find the most effective channels to tell their story? Not that they're second guessing, whether or not they're going to be received, but where they can build the most lasting relationships with their audience.
I think so. I think that takes like a personal view and a personal scope as to what works for your brand, right? So I know for me personally, I'm not a TikToker. I tried the point and thing once, but like I knew that was not going to work for me. Like I just knew it. So I think it really depends on knowing your audience, knowing yourself too, right? Because just because everyone's on TikTok and doing those things, if that doesn't work for you and it's not in your spirit, I am never going to do anything that I don't want to do, right? So like even I have someone who runs my social media now, and even when she does things, I'm like, girl, this is a great idea. I love myself. I know myself, and thank you for suggesting it, but it's just not me. And I think what we have to get out of the habit is, because something's hot, because something's trending, running to it. Now, granted, I love to talk. I can be a chatty patty. So Twitter Spaces and Clubhouse is good for me. That's good for me because I like to chat and I like to kiki. But I know I'm not going to be on TikTok dancing because Reagan don't have no rhythm. So I just know that. So I think it's about finding the space that works for you and then showing up there the best way that you can. And even if it's, even when it comes to the consistency piece where people are like, we'll post X amount of times a day, or, do these interviews X amount of times a week. I think it's about finding a strategy that 100% works for you. And although there's an industry standard with certain things, I think it has to be a you standard. It has to be a brand standard, personally and internally and professionally, so that way you can like to do it. Because I guess I got at one point I got so burnt out with social media and Jazz, I think we talked about this as well, because it was, I gotta post. I gotta talk. I gotta go live. I need to bring somebody else with me. I need to make sure that there's no cussing in the caption. And I'm just like, bro, I can't do this. I can't do this professionally and then still enjoy social media. So I think the proper channels is the channels that work for you, whether it be interviews, whether it be social media, and whether it be things like podcasts and showing up as your best self. You don't want to get burned out or drained.
And to piggyback off of that, we've talked a lot about, the issues with finding the right channels and being authentic in your story. But I think Black women overall have been beaten up so much that there is so much trauma that lives in the back of our minds in regards to, always working the hardest to get the least in return. So I'd love to hear from each of you, how you've been able to personally overcome that narrative in your own lives. I know we've all talked about in our pre-planning call about, Black women being the most educated, but also getting paid the least. We've talked about advocating for yourself, but I'd love to hear your personal stories about how you've been able to overcome that in your own lives and how you've been able to scale your businesses and your careers up when you are in that space of being ready to do that. Even with media buying, when you're ready to start getting ads out there, it's so much harder to break into these spaces when you have an unapologetically Black message. So LaShawn, let's start with you, if you don't mind.
I think, and I thought about it after Adrian last spoke, and part of what Reagan is saying now, it's the internal piece. It's been a lot of work, a lot of healing, and I feel like a lot of Black women have yet to even start that process. Like a lot of them don't know what that process looks like. Like before you can approach business, you need to fix all of this. Like these two right here, heart and mind, like you got to clear it up. And for me, that's been one of the biggest things, like pulling back from it, because it's like, if you looked at my page last spring, you saw nothing but stories, content. Like I was just busting out, just having a ball and whatnot. But like Reagan said, it became that conflict of, okay, how am I going to show up? Like, do I still want to show up here? Like, does it feel good to show up here? How do I manage and how do I balance and still make it feel good to me? And part of that was actually pulling back and not showing up at all, because I just damn it didn't want to, like plain and simple. Like I'm over it. It's too much, sharing too much of myself. It's almost like you get lost in it. Like, who have I become? Like, who am I whenever I'm logged out of this app, whenever no one sees me? So to me, it's more of internal work and making sure we heal from our traumas and anything that prevents us from feeling like we're worthy enough of the opportunities that are presented. Like you see people in half of these roles, half of these people didn't go to school for this shit. Half of them don't even qualify for it, but they get in the bag. They got chose for these opportunities and we see it all day, every day. Like I know it's on y'all Twitter feeds. I know it is. I see it on mine, but it was a part of that is really just getting out of our own minds and making sure we do the work to understand you can have these opportunities too if you just put yourself out there. Like all you have to do is show up. And a lot of people, we use the word show up or the term show up, and I think a lot of people think it's just like, oh, let me just post and you get to see me, like that's just it. It goes beyond that. Showing up is the investment. Showing up is catching a damn flight to another city just so you can take part in this conversation. So your face is in the space, so people get to know you, so someone remembers your name, so you pass off your card. It's deeper than that. So I think a lot of it is first healing and then actually doing the work. And then third, knowing that we deserve to get all the things that we want. Like a lot of people, they lack the confidence. And again, the conversation about fear. We get scared feeling like, okay, like, do I deserve it? Like we start doubting ourselves just because we see other people showing up in different ways. Like Reagan said, they can show up how they show up, but what you have to do first is focus on you. What do you need to do to move forward? First, get the mindset right. Get over the fact that you've been held back before, that you've held yourself back before you've had those fears. Next, get that envy up out your heart. If somebody else is doing it, somebody made it faster than you, they came in the game later than you, and they took off, that has absolutely nothing to do with you. Comparison kills. Don't do it. Like just focus on what you need to be doing. Surround yourself with the right people and start succeeding. Whenever that shot is open, take it. Shoot it. Eventually shoot your shot enough and eventually you will not miss.
Amen. Amen. Jasmine, I'd love to hear your perspective too.
Yeah, I think LaShawn really touched on it, honestly. I don't think there's anything additional to add here. One of the biggest investments I think you need to make as a Black woman, especially when you decide to, start a business, or even if you're just deciding how you're going to maneuver through the world, is therapy has to be an investment for you. The type of healing work that I've done to become the business owner that I am and to take a lot of stuff that I take, a lot of that stuff, I don't know what I would have done with a broken version of me. And being a healed version doesn't mean I'm perfect. It means though that I am a work in progress with grace to be a work in progress and enough ability to know that, okay, stop, let's breathe. Let's make sure we don't say this in a way that is all emotions. It's being self-aware, and it's also being so self-aware that you know your own personal mission. We talk a lot about building brands and big ones, but when we talk about our personal brands, like who do you want to become? Outside of business owners, every person should have a personal brand. Like every single one of us should have a personal brand, whether you are a business owner, just a friend, just a cousin, you should have a personal brand. And that personal brand really should get to the root of what's your mission? Who do you want to be? Who do you want to become? And what do you want to be known for? And, at the end of it, when it's all said and done and God calls me home, I want everyone to say, like, she was a caring friend. She checked in on me. She always was passing opportunities. And that was her dedication. That was her commitment to Black women. If that is true, if that is what, you write on my obituary, and I've done my part, but you don't even get to a space of understanding what you want to do until you start going through the work of saying, who am I when I unravel what the world has made me into? Like
Wow.
who you are to survive is very different than who you are to thrive, as you thrive. Who I was in the beginning of business was a hustler, right? I did identify with, being a hustler, making sure I was grinding, being self-made, right, Reagan? Like that was who I was in the beginning stages of it. In a minute that I realized that that stuff wasn't going to work with the new version of me and the version of me that was flourishing and the version of me that was truly who I am, is when I made all the adjustments. Absolutely not. We're not going to do this that way anymore. But I don't know what that would look like if I hadn't done the journey of truly healing. So I'm right with LaShawn. I don't think there is, anything else very tangible that you can do besides healing. That's important. Once you do that, the other stuff kind of comes as like a byproduct.
Amen. I love what you said about unraveling who the world has made you into. That's so, so crucial. And, Reagan, with your experience of your accident and everything that you've gone through, how have you been able to overcome those narratives and voices in your head?
Yeah, it took time. I think, like they said, it definitely took inner work, because I think what I had to realize is that I had epilepsy. It didn't have me. And I think I also had to realize that sometimes we go through things for the sake of showing someone else that things can be done. And for me, that was beauty in, hey, if I am diagnosed with this, it's not the worst thing, because it could be worse. Like someone is battling something and they don't know if up is up. So if I have this small condition, I can look at this and say, okay, I can defeat this. And I think no matter what it is, right, be it health, be it, whatever, looking at your situation from a positive perspective. Now, granted, it's hard to be positive all the time, because I get it. That's not realistic. But I think what needs to happen is taking that step back, taking a deep breath, relying on your circle, because my family and friends got me through that. Like they got me through that. And I think I'm still getting through it in some ways, but I'm noticing that setback made for a major comeback. And I think sometimes we're set down so that way we can go through storms and know that storms pass. So I think you need to have tunnel vision, if you will, when you're building out your company, building out your brand, building out your business. And no, that doesn't mean that other folks cannot be in your vision. But what that does mean is get so laser focused, take rest, get laser focused, take rest, but know that no matter what, if you are putting in the work, if you're putting in the sweat equity, you'll be great. It's just a matter of time. So.
Amen. Amen. Adrienne, I'd love to hear your perspective too before we wrap up.
Yes, I agree. I feel like sometimes we ask for these opportunities. You ask, like, I want my business to grow. I want to get this client so bad. If you're spiritual, you might pray on that, right? I would say be ready for that opportunity. Keep writing those articles, keep posting, keep reaching out, even when you feel like no one's paying attention to you, because, 1 minute nobody's checking for you. The next minute you have all these job offers, you have all these people reaching out to you. Like, it's crazy how things can change like that. So I would say be prepared, right? So when that time comes, you're ready, right? But then I'll also say, don't get burned out. because it is so easy to get burned out. And if you are mentally exhausted, take that time to rest, because like I'll speak personally, I cannot be my best and I cannot produce my best when I am exhausted, right? And I'm not just talking about one night of like 3 hours of sleep, but I'm saying like over time, like we're saying like weeks or months where you're just exhausted. Like it is so hard to perform your best. And I think that a lot of time as Black women, we put that pressure on ourselves of, no, I got to keep grinding, I have to keep grinding. And sometimes we really do just need to pause and be like, this is actually a bad week for me. Like I'm tired. I'm going to rest, but I will get back to you next week, in the morning. I got you, because I think that's just so important. And we need to normalize that. And I love what we're seeing just wider with like some of the athletes out there, like Simone Biles, just saying, like, I need to rest, because sometimes we idolize certain people and think that they're flawless and they can't make any mistakes, and then the 1 minute that they show that they're human, it's as if like they're this terrible person. It's like, what? Like, do you see sis? Do you see what she's doing out there? And it's like, don't think that you are not still superwoman, that you are not amazing just because you need rest. Like, we are human. Okay. So I will say rest as well.
I love that. I love that. Thank you, ladies, so much. And I think it's funny that you bring up the burnout, because, the reason that I've been doing all of these events online has been because of a documentary that I have been working on for a really long time. I started it before the pandemic. It had to get put on pause because the whole world stopped, for a while in 2020. And it's been hard to get back into it. I'm a grad student. I have a full-time job. Like, it's been a lot. And I think the narrative that keeps coming up, the film is really an artistic representation of affirmations for Black women, and it's different women from different parts of the diaspora, women from all over the globe who really are sharing the same thing of not believing that they are worthy of whatever they deserve, and the growth process of discovering that they are actually worthy. And it always involves interactions with other Black women as well. So I really appreciate the discussion today and the ability to see in real time, that these connections really do matter, and they really can support our business. They can help us financially, but they can also help us emotionally and make us remember that, we're not alone, that other people are going through the same process that we are. So I really appreciate it. And all of the registrants are going to get the recording of this conversation as well. And we're going to be starting a Slack channel next week as well, so that all of these conversations can continue online. So all of you ladies will be invited to that. So thank you so much. And everybody have a beautiful day.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye, everyone.